All right, for the next example, we are asked to find the range of values for x by using the triangle inequality theorem. So what we're going to do is write basically our three statements for using the triangle inequality theorem. So what should happen here is I should have 14 plus x, these two sides should add up and be greater than 21. In addition, well, let me go ahead and solve that first. So I'm just randomly starting with two sides, and I know it has to be greater than the third by the triangle inequality theorem. And I'm going to go ahead and move my set 14 over to the other side. When I subtract 14, I'm going to get 7. So what I want to do is I want to do basically like a number line down here, okay? And I want to include my values that I get as I find them. So I'm going to say 7 is somewhere here, and it has to be values that are greater than 7. I'm just going to put 7 on there for right now, okay? Let me move on to the next part. I'm trying to color code this as I go through. The next statement I'm going to have based off of the triangles is adding these two sides together, 21 and x. I know that if I add 21 and x together, that it should be larger than 14. Well, whenever I subtract 21 on both sides for this one, I get that x is greater than -7. So I'm also going to go ahead and add -7 to my number line as well. Obviously, my number line is not drawn to scale, so I'm just putting them on the correct location. I know negatives are to the left. Okay, for the last piece, I know that if I add these two together, the last two, 21 plus 14, that should be greater than my last side, which is x. So 21 plus 14 is going to give me 35. Therefore, I always like to write my x first with inequalities, so I'm going to switch them. So just make sure your arrow, see how it's opening towards the 35 here? So when I flip these two, I still need to make sure that my arrow is opening and wanting to eat. If you remember, you learned inequalities with alligators, want the bigger number, 35. Okay, and I'm going to add 35 to my number line. Again, not drawn to scale. Okay, so I'm going to start with, since I'm on blue, x is less than 35. So here I am at 35, and all numbers less than 35 will work for the blue. So I'm going to go ahead and just color in everything to the left. All these numbers forever and ever and ever goes on and on to the negative infinity. All of them to the left are in the equation x is less than 35, right? Those are all less than 35. Now let me do the green one. Now when I look at my green, I want x is greater than -7. So here's -7, and everything greater than is everything to the right, right? And I can keep going, going on forever because all those numbers to the right of -7 are larger than -7. Last one is my red one that I have left. Here I am at 7, and the statement says x is greater than 7. So I'm going to go to the right again. Right, on and on and on. Okay. What your solution is all the section of your number line that has all three colors. So it has to satisfy all three of those inequalities. So which portion of your graph has all three? Well, if I look in this section, I only see blue and green. If I look over here, I only see blue. I need blue, red, and green. And it does really help if you do have colored pencils or something while you're doing your homework to look at this. If I look at this portion of my graph in between 7 and 35, I do see red, green, and blue happening in between these two. So the question is asking, what is the range of my x values? My answer is going to be when x is between 7 and 35, because that's the portion of the number line where I saw all three colors. And again, if you look over here, I only see red and green, so I know that can't work either. So when you're doing this, you have three different number lines that you basically need to put together, and you want to look for the overlap section of all three different colors that you see. All right, I believe you guys have a, well, I guess you don't have a practice problem on that one. I'm going to move on to my next part then, okay? Side angle relationships and triangles. If two sides of a triangle are not congruent, then the larger angle is opposite the longer side. So you should start to notice in this unit that there is a direct correlation between the sides and the angles. What we noticed earlier when we were dealing with like equilateral triangles is that if all the sides were congruent, then all the angles were congruent. With an isosceles, earlier in the chapter, if two sides were congruent, then two angles were congruent. So this is just getting you to realize that there is a relationship that's occurring with the angle and the side opposite of that angle. There's a direct correlation there. So what it's saying is that the largest angle corresponds to the opposite side. So whatever angle is the largest, then the opposite side is the largest as well. So let's look at an example. For each triangle, order its angle measures from least to greatest. So again, this number 15 corresponds to this angle across from it. So basically, what angle isn't touching this line? Well, right now I'm touching B and C, so the angle that it corresponds to is angle A. And since 15 is the smallest side, then angle A is going to be the smallest angle. Okay, if I asked you to order these three numbers from least to greatest, we would write 15, 32, and 40, right? That's from least to greatest. So I'm going to do the same things, but I'm just making the angles correspond to the sides. So we know 32 is next up, okay? And 32 is going to correspond, again, here's my line segment. It can't be C, it can't be A. It shouldn't be touching the two sides. It's got to be the other letter that's all the way across on the other side. So if 32 is the second largest side, then B is the second largest angle. Okay. Lastly, we know that 40 is the next largest side, or is the largest side of the entire triangle. The opposite of that is going to be the angle that it's not touching on the ends, right? So 40 is going to correspond to angle C. So the main idea of that theorem is that the sides correlate to the angles. Your largest side correlates to the largest angle. And you're always making sure that you're picking the correlation that's opposite or across from what's given. Okay, angle-side relationship again. If two angles of a triangle are not congruent, then the larger side, we already did that, right? Okay, let's move on for the next one. I don't know why I wrote it twice. I'll fix it. For each triangle, order the side length from least to greatest. So now we're given the same question, but this time we're given the angles instead. So now we're going to list out the sides that are congruent. So I'm going to start with the given information, and I'm going to go ahead and write my angles from least to greatest. So I have 45, 65, and 70, something that you guys should easily be able to do, right? So I'm going to start with 45. Remember, it's going to be the line segment that does not include the letter C. So 45 corresponds to the line all the way across or on the opposite side, which is line segment AB. The next largest angle is going to be 65. So 65 is going to correspond with, again, that's angle B is 65. So the one that doesn't include B would be AC. That's across or the opposite side. And lastly, angle 70, which happens to be our largest angle, corresponds to the largest side, which is directly across or opposite, and that is side length BC. All right, so your guys' homework for tonight is only numbers 5 through 11. And you're going to have your homework attached. And don't forget, you guys, to make sure that you include any questions on the Collaborate. So I know that all of your practice questions today, the quizzes and all that, I'm now looking for you guys to get those correct in order for you to receive full credit for your Nearpod questions. So please make sure that you go through those. And if it's a draw it question that doesn't give you feedback, those ones are okay. And even if it's open-ended, that's okay. But if it's a question where you're asked to match up things, like earlier today, you had this quiz question, you guys should be getting 100% on that by the time you're done. All right. So please make sure you do the best that you can. And I will see you tomorrow morning at